It is football week in our community. This Friday night, we host the Seminole Chieftains. 16-0. They beat us last year. They're coming to our town. It's going to be interesting to see how the Wolves react in game one of the Jason Madonna era. Gentlemen, for this week, who would you think would be the ideal person to bring on and talk to all of us?
Let's go back 20 years and see what happened then.
20 years? Well, that's when we started with Shawnee football.
It's a long time.
It's older than me.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Quit reminding us of that, man. You're advanced beyond your years. So, I'll tell you, from my heart, I need to change this shirt. I need to change this shirt to talk to the next dude. And in fact, I think when we go back 20 years, I need to have a different shirt on.
We need a different sound.
We do. Oh, the pretty little princess. That was awful. Wow.
Come on. That was like the grand entrance. Does this bring back memories to you guys?
No.
Not to me, because I wasn't around.
I don't know that either one of you were born when this was.
I was actually born.
Well, maybe.
I was going to college then.
Well, this is a classic. This is a classic. And anytime that you mention or anyone mentions the 2003 state championship team, the one name that always comes up, there's a few, but one that always comes up is Carter Whitson. And we get the privilege of talking to Coach Carter Whitson today. Carter, man, thanks a lot for coming on.
I appreciate you having me, man. This is awesome. It's been fun catching up with some of the guys, just talking about 20 years and excited to talk to you. Everybody's changed a whole bit, but that story is still awesome, so we love talking about it.
Well, as I turn, I'm shocked, man. You look a lot like your dad used to look.
Yeah, he's still probably got a little more hair than me, so I lost that pretty early. Older brother Tanner got the great hairline. I got the blue eyes and the state championship ring, so I'll take that.
Yeah, I know, and I think Tanner just went, ouch.
Yeah. I remind him of it every once in a while.
I'll tell you what, one of the guys shared with me a nickname, and I'm going to throw this nickname out to you, and you tell me if you, first of all, even remember it, and second, what it means to you, but I think the name was Lucius.
Jake Simpson. I guarantee it was Jake Simpson. And, I've forgot a lot of things, and I don't know if I would have remembered that, but he's the only person ever to call me Lucius. No clue, or I have no memory of why. But when you're a quarterback and center, you've got an intimate relationship. So as long as he blocked for me, I was going to let him call me whatever he wanted to.
Hey, Carter, you were on the sideline. You played some defense on the defensive side of the ball your sophomore year. Might have got in a little bit on the offense, but you guys had really, you had a great team. Illusions of grandeur. We were going all the way. That was supposed to be the team. Claremore comes in, hurts us. They just hurt us. Yeah. What was that like in that locker room? Or was it a few weeks later, or maybe even after the break, that you were able to recoup and say, well, you know what? I've got my own 2 years coming up.
Yeah, that one hurt pretty bad. That's big brother. That's Tanner. That's my dad. Grandpa's on the staff. Mom's the cheerleading sponsor. That was a family ordeal always. And that year, yeah, it was big brother's show. And Brett Draper and Ricky Reed and Bryce Columbus and some of those guys are just unbelievable football players that had the team that should have been the best team in Shawnee for a long time. And they were. And we got absolutely upset, didn't play great. Things bounced the Zebras away, and it hurt really, really bad. We still go back and think about that one, even though we got it done the next year. That was Big Brother, and that was their group. So, I wasn't the quarterback, but I never came off the field playing defense, and that was just a part of the team as a sophomore as I was a junior, and it really, really hurt. I remember this. If you remember the old Nokia phones, the Nokia phones had that antenna that just stuck up right there for no reason. But I remember after the game, I went in and, I was a sophomore, so it wasn't my last game ever. But I remember going and grabbing my phone out of the locker, and I went and I sat in the laundry room by myself and just, you cry, you reflect, you're pissed, you're punching things. But I remember grabbing my phone, and you could change your wake up message. Whenever you turn your phone on, it had a little message for you, and I typed in there "never again." You know, I saw what it did to my brother, what it did to his best friends, what it did to our team, and I was like, right then, 10 minutes after the game, I wanted my message to be, I don't want to feel this again. I don't want our team, I don't want our town to feel it again. And, they're seniors being by each other and hugging and doing all that stuff afterwards. So I went and kind of reflected by myself and had that message for myself and stayed on that phone probably until the next year when I left. I had a new message at Broken Arrow.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, that just brings chills. And the guys make fun of me sometimes because I like this book. But I had this quote, and I want to share it with you, Carter, because what you just described, Chuck Noll, a legendary Pittsburgh Steelers coach, 3 Super Bowl rings, I think in 3 years, but it might have been 5 years, but legendary teams. He said, you can't tell someone to go out and lead. You become a leader by doing. So if you don't want to be a leader, or if you want to be a leader, go do it. What you just described nails what one of the best NFL coaches ever said. And it seems like in that moment, by yourself, in the laundry room, and through some tears, you decided never again, and you decided you were going to go do.
Yeah. Sophomore year's tough because it's the first year in your career where you're not just playing with your classification, 7th grade only, 8th grade only, 9th grade only. When you get to sophomores, now you're all of a sudden, you're the young men of 3 years. And I got to watch some really great leaders. Before that, I was always a great leader because it was just my group. So it was a little bit different of a role being little brother. And Tanner was the offensive leader. He was the quarterback. I got to be the defensive leader because in Billy's defense, we ran a 4-4 cover 3, and we had some stud linebackers, some seniors with Osung Kim and Brian Fair and Petey Phillips. But I got to be the one controlling the calls on who locked up, who blitzed. So I got to already be thrown into the deep end of being a leader with that group. So had it already, obviously had it naturally with my dad being a head coach, my grandpa being a coach, and then watching my brother, he was the lead at it. So I got some really good guys that taught me how to do it, and it came natural because of that.
So a lot of the guys are pointing to, your dad pointed to that Guthrie game, first of the year, 2003, you come out and you beat the state champions. How'd you feel after that? And were you maybe a little bit more realistic about this is just one game at that point? Or were you like, okay, we've got something special, let's go do it?
Well, I'll tell you a little secret. I don't know how many people I've told this, but I was pissed before. I was pissed off before, and I was pissed at my dad because my dad had an interview. And we were coming off, obviously, the great year before, the great team before. We were going into that game against Guthrie, who was obviously a dominant football team. But we got there, and in the interview my dad had with the Oklahoman, he was talking about how it's probably going to be a defensive battle. We've got a new quarterback, and we're not going to be – we probably won't be as explosive on offense. So, I don't know if he's smarter than he thinks he is, but he lit a fire under me to where – I was ready to go put on a show week 1. And, that whole year we weren't an offense that was going to light it up, 50 points a game. We were going to slow it down because we were so dang good on defense. But I took it personal that Dad was like, I don't know how good this young kid's going to be. And a few plays I just, refused to get tackled and made some plays. And, we were so dynamic with all these different kids with Wally and Walter Boyd and Joe Collier. We could spread people out, and I could take advantage of some gaps and holes. But before the game, I got challenged about, I don't know if he really knew what he was doing, but he got it done. And then afterwards, it was a confirmation that we were going to be all right. We had confidence, just guys that went out and could go do anything, anytime. Zach Wallace never stretched a day in his life, and he'd go out there and run a 4.5 40. Joe Collier had never been in a weight room before he got Shawnee, and all of a sudden he's just a dude, can't get tackled, tackles everybody. So we had a little swag, a little confidence, a little chip on our shoulder because the older group was supposed to get it done, and all of a sudden we're like, all right, cool, we'll go get the job done.
So it sounds like now you knew we're gonna go win a state championship. Was it like that for you, or was there a moment that, number one, I want to know what was the low moment of that year for you, and then what was the moment that you were like, we're gonna go get this done?
Yeah, I could lie to you and tell you right after that Guthrie game, I felt like we were going to get it done. But we go 1-2, and then we go 3-4, and we're sitting there after week 7, like, shoot, man, let's try and get a playoff run going. So we beat Guthrie, feel pretty good, but then Ardmore comes to town. We get absolutely screwed by some officials in our place. And I vividly recall being in the end zone, looking at a ball on the ground, looking at the back judge, and he goes, catch, touchdown. I'm like, this isn't how it's supposed to be. So we got beat by that team, which kind of gave us a little edge in the semifinals. And then, Stillwater came to town, a little larger school, and they were pretty good. They whipped up on us pretty good, but we learned a whole lot and got better from those lumps. Dad was always, let's schedule good teams early because you're going to have to beat good teams late. So we didn't want anybody, smaller class or somebody to beat up on the first 3 weeks. We want to go play state champions. We want to play larger schools. We want to play a rival in Ardmore. So we took our lumps those next 2 games, then got on a little bit of a roll in district. We had some, you had some Durants, you had some Harris that we were pissed off at because of some basketball crap they pulled. So we got a little momentum beating the crap out of some people. Then you get into district, TSST with Prentice Elliott, man. There was a Twitter poll going the other day of who's the best high school football player to come out of Oklahoma. And I said, everybody here is ignorant if they don't say Prentice Elliott. We played against Jermaine Grisham, and there were some dudes, Sam Bradford's from Oklahoma, old school guys from all over the place. But I'm telling you right now, Prentice Elliott's the best high school football player ever come through here. So we talk about beating Guthrie. We talk about, getting beat by Tulsa Central, win a state championship, beating TSST, which isn't even a school anymore. And that gave us a lot of confidence that we could do some stuff that no one else could. So long season, a lot of games, a lot of memories that you have on some big stuff that everybody remembers. But there's a few things that I kind of remember. Just playing against Prentice was one of those, like, Jesus, this dude's unbelievable. So we played against some dudes like that, and it came back at the end to kind of help us out, playing against Jermaine Gresham, playing against the speed of Lawton Mack. We just saw some crazy stuff throughout the year that got us prepared to go on that run.
Well, you were the one that people point to. You were watching the clock when it finally ran out with MacArthur. You're like, no, dudes, we did this. What about, is there another time in the season in which, something just changed on the inside of you where you just went confident, like, no, we can beat anybody that we put our minds to. This team could do it.
Yep, and I know the exact point. We're getting on the bus after the Noble game, and I sit down right by Zach Wallace, and I had this sense of relief over my body, just like, woosah. I got past what the curse that the previous team had if they couldn't make a run at it. We got past the first round, we got past the seventh round, and I had a second round, and I was just like, man, this is awesome. We've made a great run. I'm proud of us. And Zach Wallace was basically like, screw that. We're going to go win the whole dang thing. And nobody knows that story. Everybody looks at me as a quarterback, as a leader, and I had that, a little bit of a Whitson, man, monkeys off our back, and Wally, the turds, like, no, idiot, we're going to go win the whole damn thing. And right then on that bus, I was like, all right, that's a new mindset of never thought we were going to get beat, but it was a good hill to climb. And instead of being at the peak, we just kept climbing. So, man, I do recall that. And it was a team that never lacked confidence, but to go on that run, it took little bitty steps, and beating Noble at Noble was huge, but getting on that bus was, for me, listening to a guy that he was going to go play no matter what. And he said, no, man, we're going to go win the whole damn thing. So it was cool for me to be led by a guy that maybe doesn't get all the credit that everybody knows about.
Well, Coach, talk a little bit about that, about the camaraderie and how important that really was, because you had a lot of talented juniors on that team, some talented seniors, but the junior class gets a lot of pointing towards. And you played multiple sports. You were a multiple sport athlete, starter on the basketball team. You played with Eric over there. You played with Zach over there. You guys did a lot together. Talk a little bit about the importance of that camaraderie for you, and how, being outside of the football realm actually helped you in that moment listen to your senior friend and gain the confidence that you knew, you're right, man, let's go win it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was special about, one of the big things my mom and dad did, moving to Shawnee, was making it about the community. And a part of that within the school, within the hallways, was we played multiple sports. We had teammates all throughout. We were best friends with the cheerleaders in Palm. It was all, one big community that was a part of that run, a part of that state championship, because we did other things besides play football together. Me, Wally, and Eric played basketball. The baseball team was phenomenal. A lot of those guys played all those different sports, and it kind of helped us out. It helped us get away from football in the off season, and it helped us come back together and get in that mindset. But the classifications of juniors and seniors, a little fun thing that we did that I don't know how many people know about. We had a Monday night, young guys games throughout the playoffs. On Monday night, the seniors had a team that they coached, and the juniors had a team that they coached. And after practice on Monday, we'd go through a quarter and we'd scrimmage, and I'd be calling plays for my team that I drafted, and maybe Wally and Joe were calling plays for the other team that they drafted. Richard and Barrett Gilly might have been calling the defense for our team, and Torrance Ely and McAvoy, they were calling the defense. So it was kind of a fun deal that it was juniors versus seniors in that, but we're both coaching some juniors, some seniors, some sophomores, some freshmen. And we had some fun each week. And, ironically, we did it, we played a quarter every Monday, and we got to go on 4 playoff games. So we finished it, and my team won at the end of it. So no big deal, but I can still talk trash to that older group. We had Tucker. That was kind of special because he was probably the best quarterback on the team, even though he was a freshman and I was starting. But we had some fun with that to make it a little bit more camaraderie, a little bit competition, a little bit of, us versus you guys, and just trying to win at everything we did. So it's a pretty cool deal.
Well, Carter, you're undoubtedly a winner, but I'm glad you bring up Tucker because you brought up Prentice Elliott. And it's funny because I would have been right there with you. If somebody asked me the greatest athlete that I've ever seen on a football field do what he does, it would be between Prentice, but I would always bring up Tucker as well because Tucker had that elusiveness, and he was just so much fun to watch. A different style than what you had. But talk about that too. Maybe some performers on that team that were very special to the team, but might not have been known as well to the crowd because maybe they weren't on the field or maybe, they were in the trenches or something. Is there anybody that comes to mind or a few people?
I kind of joked around. I felt like, I might have been the best quarterback, but I might have been the third best athlete on the field to take snaps. Because Tucker obviously was just a freak athlete. He comes in the next year and sets every record you could set offensively. Billy took over the offense when me and my dad left, and they changed it up. They were more offense, spread it out, go fast instead of grind it out, winning games with low scores like we were my year when we won it. But Tucker was a dude with the ball in his hands, and when Joe Collier took snaps at quarterback, he knew what he wanted to run. He'd tell Dad, "We're going to run quarterback outside zone, right or left." And Joe would probably score. Joe was one of those dudes that he didn't grow up playing 7th, 8th grade with us, and 9th grade he came in, he just showed up, and he was a dang football player. He was soaking wet, 150 pounds, but he played corner. He would rock you. If he caught the ball, he was good chance he was going to score. He was our deep snapper. And if you go to the state championship game, we had to have a great deep snap by him and a great punt by Jason Bourbonnais. But Joe was one of those dudes that we could not have got it done if we didn't have a guy like that. He was just kind of he'd come in and spell Wally or Cujo at wide receiver. He played corner, he deep snapped, he was our punt returner, he was a kick returner. He was one of those guys that was just an elite football player. And, you said at the end, you said, the guys in the trenches. I was showing in my weight room here at Edmond North, we've got 6 TVs out there, and I got on YouTube the other day and turned on our state championship game, and man, were we slow, but we were massive up front. I mean, this is 20 years ago, And up front with Herod and Byron Little and Jake Simpson and Justin Thompson and Zach Howard, man, those dudes were massive up front. You don't even talk about the 320-pound fullback we had in Walter Boyd. So we were just big, man, and we could grind it out. And then defensively, it was a rotation of a bunch of dudes that played on the D-line, but, with Sims, with Chicago Heron, with some guys that was just, hey, throw them in there. There's going to be 4 bodies coming in fresh, and they were going to attack and be big. David Holmes, just guys that were phenomenal football players that you can't call out one of them, but they were dang good. Same deal with linebackers. We played 8 of them. There's Gilly and Will Thompson and Jared Jackson. Combs was playing outside backer. It was just a big old group of guys that could come in, play fresh, play both sides of the ball if we need to, and really just helped us go on a big playoff run because we were fresh for 14 weeks.
Well, and I love it. And it's funny because one of those unsung heroes, when you mention linebacker, and your dad would always scoff at me. He'd go, yeah, but he's a sophomore, or he might even have been a freshman, but it was the Bedwell kid.
Yeah.
See, running wild on the Sooners field for both of those nights. I mean, what about those underclassmen guys?
You could see Bedwell. You could see number 44 flying around every play. I mean, he was a guy, Zach Howard started at left tackle as a sophomore, and Bedwell started at, one of the Mike positions, Mike or Will, as a sophomore, didn't play any offense. So when that cat got on the field, man, he was flying around. And, a lot of the turnovers we created, I bet, in the last 3 games, our turnover ratio was incredible because we were flying around and we were group tackling and there was a bunch of fumbles forced and a bunch of different dudes recovering fumbles. But Bedwell was always one of those. Those guys flying around, it was fun to watch. Sophomores, juniors, seniors was a big part of that team.
Well, I know the moment, we talk about moments, and it was that same game you talk about it when I thought, wow, this team could probably beat anybody. It was the Noble game. That was a game that we didn't cover. I got to go down and kind of be on the sidelines, and I just watched you guys, and they were spanking us. And we come in at halftime, and it was really I was surprised. It was a very low-key halftime. But in the second half, Carter, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was almost like Carter over right guard, Carter over left guard, Carter over left tackle, Carter over... you just took that ball, put it on your back, and said, okay, try to tackle me because I'm going to make 5 yards. It was 5 yards every time.
Well, if you were on the sidelines, you might have heard the first F word I ever said to my dad. But that first half, about that game, that Noble group was like our Shawnee group the year before. That was their group that was supposed to win it all. And they were big time. They were huge. They were fast. They had a tight end. It was a Division I tight end. Quarterback was a great player. And they came out and lit us up and came out very fast. I remember we had a goal line stand at the end of the first half that we made a play that tackled him, and I believe they might have missed a field goal that might have put it away, and instead we held them to 0 at the end of that first half, and it gave us a chance. So getting back to you being on the sideline, I believe the first or second play of the second half, I handed the ball off, and our running back fumbled it. And I didn't come off the field. Obviously, I put my gloves on and go play safety. But I just remember jogging over to the sideline, going from offense to defense, and I said, Dad, give me the effing ball. And it wasn't anything flashy. It wasn't Tucker making everybody miss the next 2 years, but it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Give me the ball. I'm going to go forward. We're going to go forward. We're going to go forward. We're going to break a play. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to go forward. And our O-line embraced it. Our wide receivers embraced it, blocking. The tailbacks embraced it, said, screw it, we'll go block. I think I had 20 carries in the second half for a little over 100 yards. That's not a lot of yards per carry, but what it was, Dad, give me the ball. I'm going to go make something happen. And we did. It wasn't that I was anything great, but I knew I wasn't going to fumble. I knew that our O-line could get the job done. So that's not a pat on my back. That's a pat on theirs of saying, yep, we didn't do anything fancy. No play calls that are unbelievable. We're going forward, and we're going to go win the game. And we did.
I'd really like to give you the opportunity, and our kids in 8th grade the opportunity to hear perhaps some advice from you, Carter Whitson. You came here, became part of our community, I believe, in the 8th grade. You're a part of who we are now, no matter where you're coaching. Always number one with us in many of our hearts. What would you say to our 7th, 8th, and 9th graders right now, coming off an 0-10 season? I'm more excited now, coming off of that 0-10 season, Carter, than I have been for Shawnee football in a long time, because I think great things come from disaster. You experienced a lot. 4 years, actually 5 years at OU. You were coached by one of the best collegiate coaches of all time. You've gone on and you've worked under the leadership of that one of the best offensive coordinators of all time. You've come back. Now you've been a coach for 7 to 10 years at this level. When you talk to the Shawnee area junior high kids, what do you tell them now about not just football, no matter what their sport is, no matter what their extracurricular activity is, about being passionate? What would you share with them if you had the room to share?
That's a great word you just said. You said the word passionate. I talk to my kids. This is the 3rd high school that I've taken over, and the 2 previous were dumpster fires. 1 in 19 in the 2 previous years at Martinsville. Same deal at Putnam City. This place is 9-41 in their last 50 games. So I'm familiar with turning it around. When we got to Indiana, our first year, we had to completely strip everything, and we went 1-11, took that basketball school to back-to-back bowl games after a few years. And the one thing that I've learned from those people that I've worked under and coached with and coached and that I was in charge of or learning from was be excellent in everything you do. Have passion in everything you do. We challenge our guys. We do fundraising. And I said, man, be the best at fundraising. Be the best boyfriend. Be the best friend. Be the best son. Don't walk through the hallways and not be the friendliest. Carry yourself as someone's evaluating you. Someone's watching you in everything you do. And then that's habit. That's what you do. You're supposed to be the best at everything. You're not supposed to accept failure. So we talk about it all the time. You said it right. My heart is Shawnee. I went to Broken Arrow my senior year. That is where I graduated high school. But on every roster when I was at OU, I said, put Shawnee as my alumni. I'm an alumni of Shawnee. I graduated, played high school ball at Shawnee. And I still have that in my heart. When Shawnee job came open, when you got rid of and moved on from the disaster that it has been, I knew it wasn't a job that I could take because we weren't ready to move over there. But my heart answered the phone call. And the new administration is excited about what they're doing. They've got a new great coach in there. I think it's going to be a change of the disaster that it has been. And us alumni are excited about that. We wanted to be involved. And even though the what wasn't for me, I wanted to reach out to Dax and Julia about here's a group of guys that I think could help and bring back, what Shawnee's supposed to be. Shawnee's supposed to be a state championship football town. And, that couldn't be any further from that thought process right now. And that's what 6th and 7th and 8th graders know Shawnee as. So it's the history. It's the bringing back this 20 years. It's the town is all that matters. It's Shawnee High School. I'm not worried about the little Rock Creek JV high school that's out there. It's Shawnee. The place needs to be the only option, the only thing that you would want your kids to go to school, the only school you want to play for. You don't want to be a part of any of those other things. You want to be a part of Shawnee because it's special. It's got history. It's got rings. It's got state championship rings. So you're telling those guys, and that's what they got to sell. That's what the community needs to buy into. That's what the administration needs to bring in with facilities. I know the tornadoes have really devastated things. And, money's not everywhere around there, but pride is. And sometimes you got to borrow and help from some people that can and ask the right things because the place needs to be special. And you're on the right track now, but it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, and you really need some help from outsiders. And, look at the stands when we played at OU Stadium, man. There wasn't a Shawnee resident that could get to Norman that wasn't in Norman that night. And it just needs to be like that. So telling those guys, man, it's fun. It's special. You're a part of a legacy. you're not a part of something that's just new and easy. Go be a part of something and build it back up like it's supposed to be.
Well, something that I said, and with purpose, I mentioned a lot of great coaches that you've been a part of, but I probably didn't mention the best coach, and that was your dad, or, because I don't know the relationship, his dad. In the years that you were able to play with your family, and Billy has been around for a long time. What a talented play caller. But I think that it was that intangible that your dad brought to the table for us that really made a difference. And I'm starting to feel it again in our locker room here at the high school. And how important was that? Or if you could say thanks to your dad in any way right here, how would you do that, Carter?
Yeah, well, he knows. He knows. And I'm like my dad. I've got a soft heart, so I ain't going to talk about him very much. We've had great conversations about, our relationship and our role on that team and in that community, which has been special. The one I'll brag about is my grandpa. My grandpa was the one that kind of set the tone. We called him Senior because there were just too many Whitsons around. So everybody referred to him as Senior. And my dad had those, I've got light blue eyes. My dad's were lighter. My grandpa's were white. They were so crystal clear. And when senior got after you, it wasn't a lot of energy because he was older. But when he got after you, it meant something. And people shut up and listened to him. And my dad learned that, and he got the glare from him. And you can ask my kids in Martinsville or Putnam City or these cats from Edmond North. I've got the Whitson glare, and it means something when we get that look, and it's important. So, being around my dad as my coach was unbelievable. The cool thing about it was we go home and eat dinner and we weren't talking football. When we left the facility, he was my dad. It wasn't hey, let's go over some film or hey, let's talk about these play calls. We had that great relationship that was both. And I try and do that with my outside life. My wife gets mad at me every once in a while. She wants to know more stuff about football. I'm like, sweetheart, I just want to be Carter right now. I don't want to be coach. And she loves it. She's all in on football and all in on being a coach's wife. But it's good to have that separation, and you don't get tired of it. So when you're here, the energy's incredible. And I learned that from some of the best of just being here, being present, making sure my kids know how much I care about them before they care how much I know. So that's something I learned from my dad. He just had a great relationship with all of his players, and all those guys knew that we had him no matter what. So you can see it when we had to go to my grandpa's funeral a few years ago. There were Shawnee high school football players that showed up, and some of them we hadn't seen in a while. And some of them I didn't recognize, my dad didn't recognize. But Senior, he meant something to people, and so will my dad, and hopefully so will I someday when we get to that point. So it was a really cool deal.
Well, Carter, all three of you and your older brother Tanner all mean something to us as a community. We appreciate what the Whitsons brought to town. And man, you're right. You're the one with the ring along with your dad and with Senior. Sorry, Tanner, but Carter, thanks, man, for all that you've sewn into the fabric of who we are as a community. You can show it.
Hey,
you got it right there, right?
I got it. I got mine somewhere else. And this was Lewis's right here. That's the only thing I wanted from my grandpa whenever he passed. I said, I want his. So I've got two of them. So I keep it close to me. And just like everything, Shawnee's close to me, close to my heart. So I appreciate you having us. I don't think I'll be able to make it back to the 20-year reunion, but I've already been working with some of the group to do something maybe in December. My plan maybe would be do something for the 21st year whenever we get back to Shawnee High School Stadium, because I know we're playing at OBU. So you got to change, you got to adjust. But I want to get back there and be a part of it and be a presence for that program and be something to help out. So never hesitate to call. Too many people around there I still love, so I want to help out whenever I can. Well,
man, we certainly appreciate you. Nothing but the best. And go Edmond North. Huskies going to turn it around this year, right?
Absolutely. It's good to be back in Navy.
All right, my man. Have a great day and have a great season, Carter. We look forward to seeing you and shaking your hand personally soon.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate you having me, man.
Wow. Talking about a great person, talking about a great family, and talking about having a great impact in our community. The Whitson family, guys, what about them?
They get stuff done. They get it done. I can tell you that for sure.
Could you see? I mean, I know you didn't know Brent so long ago, but after our interview with Brent, it's kind of cool to see how Carter talks, and even the tone of his voice. It's like he's going gravelly, like his dad.
I feel like all coaches go gravelly, right? Because that's like, we're always screaming at kids.
Well, that was a point that Brent had made. A lot of cool things that Carter said, though. I want to go back to the advice that he gave the kids, the younger kids. It's like, hey, there's history in Shawnee, there's rings in Shawnee, go be excellent. Did that, you guys, I mean, did that resound with you, G, as a father? Something that you would want your kids to hear?
I'm not a father, but Jay may know that.
That's what I meant. That's so funny because I was thinking JG. I should have said Jared as a dad.
I definitely, first of all, Brent and Carter, you can tell they're cut from the same cloth. Like, their whole mentality is, okay, we're going to go for this and we're going to play, but also we are all Shawnee. We're all wherever we're at. And that's what I like what he said about that. And I'm going to make sure my son watches this, because being the best at everything you do doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but if we're always striving to be the best friend, like he said, the in the hallway, being the friendliest,
Yeah.
you're always going to go far with that.
Well, okay, G, you're young in your academic career. I mean, you have a few years left. You're about to get a degree. Does hearing those words say anything to you?
It kind of does. I heard someone say one time, I said, what's the point of doing it if you don't do it right? What's the point of doing it if you're not going to be the best? So as I push forward, it kind of reminds me, okay, let's do this. Why am I here if I'm not going to be the best?
I love the story about how he talked about, he felt like it was complete when he gets back on the bus after that Noble game, but then it took somebody, the senior leader, really, Wally, to say, no, we're not done, man. How about that? When you're tired, you think that you've accomplished what you're supposed to accomplish, but you have that person with you that has the vision just a little bit further, and how that motivates you to go, yeah, we can keep going. I see that in success all the time.
It's always good to have somebody that's always pushing you, and it's not a bad push. It's just hey, we got this, but we can go further.
Yeah, I think you have to have that kind of person in your life, just to be like, oh, well, I got this far and I could go further, but I don't have the motivation. But if this guy says, you got this, I would want to do that.
What about Jake Simpson, man? I mean, he nailed that. That's actually who told me that. We need to get Jake Simpson on.
I still don't understand Lucius, or
Lucius.
how you would come up with that. That's odd.
It is odd, but I thought it was interesting that he said, the center, he's the only one that ever called him that. So the center quarterback relationship being pretty important. I mean, I can definitely understand that. But what about great things come out of disaster? The year before, Carter talked about being on the field on the defensive side. He's the safety. So for those who don't know a lot about football, a lot of times the safety is the quarterback of the defense, because they see everything in front of them, so they're yelling at the back of people's heads what's going on. So they're quarterbacking that defense. And as a sophomore, that's what he was doing for his senior brother's class, and all of those bad A's on the football field that he mentioned. He rattled off some really good names. But I really think that out of that disaster, when he's there in the laundry room and he puts in never again, that was really cool. And I love how that fit from the book. But what do you guys think about that? I mean, as a sophomore, he sees it happen to the people he loves, and he respects the older classmen. But then in his heart, he just turns into that leader, and right after the game.
I think it shows the fact that he had leadership, because the average sophomore is not going to go that far into it and it's like, I'm going to change this because I am not going to feel this again. Most sophomores won't do that.
Yeah, they just feel like, well, it's up to the seniors. Either they bring us to a state championship or they don't. But it kind of felt like a movie. Like the underdog story, like never
Making a
again.
movie? We making movies now?
We could, man.
Well, you
The
said
Carter Whitson story.
well, with the Carter Whitson, it would also be the Brent Whitson story. It would be Senior's story. It would be Tanner's story. It would be, their mom was so lovely and such. I mean, he mentioned her being the cheer sponsor. She would fill milk cartons, and we had like different colored milk cartons filling up the stands as the year progressed. Like at first there was like 5 of these milk cartons you would hear shaking. Then next week there was like 10. Then the next week there was like 40. Then the next week it was like the entire stands. When we showed up at away games, the entire visitor stands, those were our stands visiting, were full. And then when we sat down, woo, 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 everybody had milkshakers that they were shaking. It's totally cool. So it would be the Whitson story if we had to make a story about it. But going into that, Carter also, he kind of questioned authority a couple of times. He didn't, I don't want to say questioned, but he talked about twice. Once his motivation was his dad in the very first game of the season, and then at the end of the season, when he said for the first time ever, he let out a cuss word in front of his dad, but what he was saying was, "We can do this, Dad." It was kind of interesting how that relationship of father-son, but talking about coach and quarterback, the coach really motivated his quarterback and his leader on that team. It was interesting.
I'd like to know if that was on purpose or not.
Yeah.
Can we have Brent come back and we ask him? Because I would like to know if he did that on purpose.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, thoughtfully, before the very first game. I mean, he knows his son probably better than anybody, and you would think that he would want to motivate, or he wants to motivate him, but you would think, possibly he said that just to piss his son off. Hey, G, around that age, if you heard that, like somebody was kind of challenging your intellectual abilities in some way, or your tech abilities in some way, would that kind of get you to
I'd be pissed. I'd like mess him up. If it was you saying something, I would mess you up on set. You couldn't be able to talk right.
You'd make sure that I knew that I was really dependent on you.
Yes, I would use my abilities to make your abilities not happen.
See, that's the difference between me and him. Because that age, I would have said, you know what? I don't care what you think anyway, so it doesn't matter. I really, that's probably now it's that way.
Well, that's part of why I love each of you guys, and that's why you guys do what you do, and you do it well. You do it with excellence. That was something that Carter talked about, was excellence. Guys, I don't know that, I don't know that I need to leave set for this show. That was pretty major for people. Even to go back and listen to that again would be good, and I think it's a great tribute to begin this football week. What do you think?
I think you should like, share, subscribe.
Hit the little bell icon on YouTube. Never miss the notification.
And then send it to your friends.
Okay.
That's what we need to do.
I think that was an agreement, because that takes us out probably of another Talk to People podcast. And what great fun we are having bringing this to you each and every week. We appreciate you liking, sharing, subscribing, ringing a bell. Come back and see the Wolves on Friday night playing Seminole. It's week 1 in the 2003 football season, and we're excited to bring it to you, our friends from Shawnee CTV, because Shawnee, together, all of us, we build community one season at a time.
This one's football season.
I guess it is. Wow.
Later.
Don't ever do that again.